My name is Moira Begale, and I play Queen Amarantha. And what drew me to the play was strong female characters fighting and some pretty fantastical literature. It's her journey of like coming of age, of recognizing responsibility, of obligation, of choosing her life, basically. She is born a woman, and of course it's a very negative thing because her father is not happy that she was born a woman. She is supposed to be a son to take over the kingdom. So right away, I think she feels as though she's failed her family because she hasn't been what her father has wanted. And so her journey is trying to find out where her strength comes from. I think what I identify the most with this character is her sense of fitting in. I'm a very tall woman. I grew up with a lot of guys in my family, and I can tell you right now that when I was growing up, I was more of a tomboy, but also a girl. I liked being a girl. I liked wearing dresses and putting on makeup, but I also liked to roughhouse with the guys, and I could tell you that at a certain time I was told that one was not proper and one was. Hopefully most people's choices lead to their own happiness. I think that when you put elements like obligation or expectation to it, people's choices change and they're not about their own happiness. Some of the themes Amarantha has to deal with are the inevitable, what my responsibility is as to what I would be happy doing.
Well, I met Tiffany Keane, the artistic director, on a production of Klingon Christmas Carol, which is another very niche kind of theater for big ol' nerds, of which I am one. And she was our assistant director, and we got along very well. She directed specifically a couple of my scenes and told me all about her theater company, Otherworld Theatre, and everything about their mission statement really appealed to me. Sci-fi and fantasy theater and trying to bring those big genres onto stage is something I kind of wanted to do already anyway. I just never knew anybody that was doing it. Really liked the idea of a fantasy play because I'd never done one before. I do stage combat anyway, so the idea of getting to do a bunch of big medieval fights and high romance and things of that nature just sounded like a lot of fun. Adrian is kind of his own thing. There's not really anyone else like him in the show. He almost literally comes out of nowhere and just sort of is there all of a sudden and is just a big, charismatic, energetic force to be reckoned with that Amarantha has never dealt with anyone like him. He's very suave, he's very debonair, he is very much a mystery. You don't really ever feel like you know exactly who Adrian is. We're both sort of have like a quiet confidence.
I am David Servillo, and I am playing the Earl of Moreland and Waldemar. I had heard about the company before. I wanted to work with them because I am a big fan of fantasy and sci-fi, and I knew that's what they did. And I thought it'd be fun to do some nerd shit. Nerd stuff. I thought it would be fun to do some nerd stuff. So the Earl of Moreland is one of the gentry of the country. He isn't a bad guy, but he's done some bad things to further himself and to further his friend Agar. My other character, Waldemar, is essentially a farmer turned warrior in the name of taking his country back from repressive queen, and he's a badass.
My name is Grace Gimpel, and my character in the play is Edra, handmaiden to Queen Amarantha. So Edra, she's a little cautious, she's methodical, she's not impulsive, she thinks things out, and I believe that she has common sense and she knows it. She's innocent and selfless. I admire the way that she tells it like it is, even if it's something that someone that she cares about doesn't want to hear. She's a kind of voice of reason.
I am Dylan Schaefer, playing the part of Roderigo. Roderigo is sort of the foppish dandy. He's the cousin of Queen Amarantha, a distant cousin, a second cousin, but is very drawn to the idea of high society and royalty. He is very much a misunderstood character. A lot of his tendencies come from his own insecurity and his upbringing, which basically taught him that he could have whatever he wanted, and he's Amarantha's pet. She treats him like the lapdog, gives him whatever he wants. Basically just a spoiled brat who doesn't know any better.
I'm Mary Kay Arnold, and I am playing the Countess Thalia. The Countess Thalia is returning to the kingdom after her entire family was accused of treason. Basically, she's coming back to reclaim what she thinks is her rightful place on the throne. She's been through a lot as a person, and I think she's coming back to prove her worth, avenge her family. The way she uses herself as like a game piece in the game, I think, is fascinating. And yeah, I definitely relate to Thalia. I think that she is misunderstood as a person. I think she's been through some hard things that have informed her decisions. And she has a little element of madness in her and sorcery that I think also like makes her very interesting, and perceived evil of her and kind of discovering like where that comes from. Like, why do bad people do bad things? Is it out of fear? Is it out of necessity? And I think that exploration is fascinating.
I'm Elliott Sowards, and I'm playing the Duke of Agar and Orvall. Yeah, no, so just to play two characters that are completely different. The Duke of Agar is kind of a calculating, ladder-climbing, manipulative, hand-to-the-king type. He doesn't try to seize power through force. He tries to seize power through manipulation and through his mind. Orvall is all about force and not about his mind at all. The things that's most fun about this for me is that I get to play two characters, and I haven't played two characters in the same play since I was probably in grade school. So, where, you know, they're like, I had to play the donkey and the, you know, the pig.
I love sitting in a room with very enthusiastic theater people and nerding out over Vikings, over fighting, over how uncomfortable we feel because we're about to kiss or have to do something that we're like, I don't know what's going on. All of it. I love the entire process of putting up a play, especially when this group has been so focused on specifics of each production element, and I think that is awesome.
The funnest part so far, I think, has been making these characters real, making them human. It's written in a very heightened language, and I guess the challenge is to make it conversational or to make it matter, so that we as the audience can watch it and relate to what's going on and relate to the relationships and even relate to the plot on some level.
It's been really cool and also challenging to come back and play this character who has these moments of complete ridiculousness, but also is this, like, you know, tortured, sad, lonely man.
I think so far the most fun thing would be getting to do multiple accents. To be able to do more of a British accent and, you know, be suave and debonair and smarmy, and then be able to go into more of an Irish at the drop of a hat, and then try to convince people you're an entirely different person. It's a lot of fun when you get to have you know, the medieval costumes. We get to have all of the big powerful weapons, and there's high stakes, there's the rise and fall of kingdoms, there's clashing armies.
I think just all the people that are in it. It's a cast full of people that I love, and it's a big one. It's a big one for Otherworld Theatre so far. So it's been a party every time we come to rehearsal, and I love it.
I don't think I've ever connected more to shows that dealt with both a fantastical and a romantic element, because it's so magical, it's so fun, it brings those elements that I love doing on the side, which I'm a big combat fighter. I love doing that. I also love dramatic dialogue, cheesy dialogue in a way, when it works, because it's something that, like Lord of the Rings, I will connect to and I will watch over and over again.
Fantasy is important to me because it's always been an escape. Unlike regular literature, I can sink into a fantasy. It's very similar to acting in the way that when I'm acting, I can sink into a character. Reading a fantasy novel lets me sink into those characters and that storyline and that completely different world and live in it.
It's a genre that allows people to be a little bit more comfortable with big ideas. A lot of the themes are about sexual fluidity, gender roles in society, and I think that this play uses fantasy and a kind of fairy tale-like world to tell these stories in a way that maybe makes them make sense to hopefully people who don't relate to them in our everyday life. Maybe it makes it a little bit easier for people to understand if they see it in a fantastic world than if they see it in our everyday world.
I think fantasy is important because it has sort of a timeless quality to it. It really excites the imagination in a way that I think everybody can relate to. And that I think that's also part of what helps make it timeless, is that you can always be imaginative. People are never not going to be imaginative. And a lot of fantasy is also about heroic journeys of, you know, people that are flawed, or a normal person put into extraordinary circumstances where they have to rise up to a challenge and become a hero, either reluctantly or decidedly so. The striving to defeat evil and be a better version of yourself is a huge part of fantasy that I also think pretty much everybody can relate to.
I think that fantasy in a lot of ways can deal with real world issues and really sort of enlighten the human condition in a way that it doesn't have to feel preachy, and it can feel fantastical and exciting. I think that it's also a powerful statement into the reality of women leaders and the things that women have to sacrifice to be in those positions, that hopefully is not as true now as it was in the Middle Ages, but there are a lot of holdovers. You know, you don't often see a play or any kind of fiction work, really, of any popularity that deals with these gender issues outside of simple straight or gay. You know, these characters that have a fluid gender identity. I just think that that's really poignant, especially now, you know, in our country today, where these issues for some reason are so hotly debated.
If the Earl of Moreland was a food, he would probably be cucumber sandwiches. And if Waldemar was a food, he'd be mutton.
If Roderigo was a food, he would be big, juicy grapes. The kinds with the seeds in them. Because they're delicious, but those seeds are really fucking annoying.
An orange. Something that kind of, it's like she's usually sweet, essential for like every day, you know, vitamin C, very important. But can sting you when you least expect it.
I think some really grizzled beef jerky.
The Duke of Agar would be like steak tartare. Because he's sophisticated, but possibly dangerous. I think that Orvall would be shepherd's pie. Because he's hearty and simple.
Triple layered raspberry fudge cake. Because he is both decadent and layered at the same time. And just delicious. And just pretty to look at. It checks all the boxes.
If Countess Thalia was a food, she would be a lemon tart. Because she is seemingly super sweet and hopefully good to look at. The playwright's words, not mine. But when you bite into her, she's very sour. And sometimes it takes a special sort of palate to enjoy her. Also, it's laced with poison.
I would say if you like Game of Thrones, if you like fantasy, romantic fantasies, and if you like fighting, you should come see it, which I have to admit, I don't think I know anybody who doesn't like any of those elements, so you all should come see it.
There's so much spectacle, there's so much fighting, there's so much, you know, sex. There's, you know, there are things that you don't see a lot of on stage. It's not a bunch of people sitting around in a living room. It is essentially an action series or an action fantasy movie brought to a small theater.
You should come see Amarantha because it's going to be really exciting. It's going to be just non-stop, full throttle romance and action and adventure, and can't miss it.